Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Preacher Boys podcast. Today's episode is going to be a very, very heavy one. If you saw the title, I think that goes without saying, but I'm going to be covering some of the darkest headlines that have come out of Baptist churches in the month of March so far. I'm recording this episode on Wednesday, March 19th, 2025. And all of these stories took place after March 1st. And so in the last couple of weeks, the headlines have been packed with incredibly heavy stories of abuse involving children, involving other victims, and involving animals, as you read in the title. And so I cannot stress this enough. Given the nature of the show, I always have a trigger warning at the beginning of the show, always have a content warning. This episode in particular is not going to go, deep into these stories, but just the information that's on the surface is very heavy. So please take caution listening to the episode. If you have an experience of trauma in religious environments, just listen in a way that is best going to serve you. And this episode really has two purposes. One, I know for myself, I have just dealt with an incredible sense of overwhelm in the month of March. It seems like every couple days there is a new news headline, there's a new scandal, there's a new thing clamoring for our attention, and there's also just work and life. And some of these stories, are easy to miss. Some of these stories are so horrific, you'd think everybody in the country would know about them, be talking about them. You think it would be a cause for concern and, cause for rethinking the way that we have some of these systems set up. But unfortunately, and as always, it doesn't seem like the case. And it seems like most of these stories have slipped under the radar. And the reason this episode really came together is because I was sitting there and I felt like this week and last week, it was like every other day I'm getting on the phone with people, just sharing new stories that I hadn't come across yet and revealing details about situations to me that I was completely blind to. And I'm somebody that hosts a podcast about these topics. 7 days a week, I am in some way consuming information about abuse and trauma in religious environments. And even I was unaware of a lot of these stories, and there's stories that aren't even in this episode that have come out. But there's a lot. And so the one hand, I want to create this episode just to educate everyone and give you essentially a primer to catch you up to date on all the things that are happening. But beyond that, I do want this episode to imbue a sense of overwhelm in you as well. Typically, I don't like to leave a conversation where people feel completely hopeless walking out of an episode. When that's a survivor episode, they typically end with where they're at now. If I'm interviewing an expert, it's what can we do? But the reality is that some of these situations are so horrific, and the amount of just gross, disgusting cover-up and systemic abuse within some of these organizations should feel overwhelming. It should push us to go, how do we stop this? And I hope people exit this episode feeling some level of hopelessness about the current state of things and feel a sense of disenfranchisement about, the state of abuse within the church. And so I'm going to share these stories. Again, that's kind of my twofold goal. One, to catch you up on some of these stories that you may have missed, because I know that's why so many of you listen to the show. But two, I want you to realize that these stories all took place in the month of March. And we still have, I believe, 10 days left as of the time of this release of this recording. And so let's ask ourselves how all of these abuse stories took place back to back to back in the month of March. And so I've got 9 stories that made headlines in March 2025 involving Baptist abuse. Let's go ahead and get started. First off with the Southern Baptist Convention. The SBC is in a financial crisis, which I'm quite happy about. On March 1st, SBC leaders requested an additional $3 million from congregants to cover mounting legal expenses tied to sexual abuse cases. This comes atop $13 million already spent since 2021. Their financial strain underscores a decades-long pattern of mishandling abuse claims, as detailed in the 2022 Guidepost Solutions report, which revealed over 700 abusers and systemic cover-ups. The Guidepost Solutions report was essentially for the Southern Baptist Church what Spotlight was for the Catholic Church in Boston. If you've never read the Guidepost report, it is incredibly disturbing. And if you're a Southern Baptist, I definitely encourage that you listen to it. But that Guidepost report was pretty devastating. It revealed a lot of major issues within the Southern Baptist Church when it came to abuse. And like I just read, revealed over 700 abusers and systemic cover-ups. So first and foremost, the fact that the SBC is still hurting from this 2022 report and is now requesting an additional $3 million from their congregants in order to address these issues is pretty startling. The second story does not involve a massive organization like the Southern Baptist Convention, but an individual. His name is Britt Taylor. He's the former minister of music at Calvary Baptist Church in Horn Lake, Mississippi. Taylor, who's 44, was arrested and charged with one count of transfer of obscene material to a minor. The indictment alleges that in December 2024, Taylor used his phone to send a message containing an image of male genitals to someone he believed was a girl under the age of 16, but you have to love this. However, the recipient was actually an undercover law enforcement officer. On January 6, 2025, Taylor called Pastor Greg Cook of Calvary Baptist Church to confess his online sexual misconduct and inform him that his activities were under criminal investigation. The church leadership immediately took action, which, wow, I wish I could say that sentence more often, terminating Taylor's employment the following day based on his confession. The church released a statement to the Baptist press condemning Taylor's actions, saying, quote, "We want to be clear. Britt Taylor committed acts of sexual misconduct which directly go against our church's teaching, our church's policies, and our church's practice," end quote. As part of the investigation, federal agents seized Taylor's phone in January 2025. The indictment was filed on March 18th, 2025. Now he's facing pretty serious legal consequences. If Taylor is convicted, he could be sentenced to up to 10 years in prison and fined up to $250,000. His trial is scheduled for May 5th, 2025. Now, of course, we hope that there are some actual serious consequences, but the way the legal system is, you don't really know, as is evidenced in story number 3 that I wanted to share with you. On March 5th, 2025, Harold Norman Cole Jr., former pastor of Trinity Baptist Church in Michigan, was sentenced to just 365 days in jail and 18 months probation after pleading no contest to aggravated assault on a victim under 12 years of age. Just 365 days in jail for abusing a child under the age of 12. The original charge, which was second-degree criminal sexual conduct, stemmed from a 2021 incident involving a juvenile. Cole's reduced plea got rid of that charge and just left him with the aggravated assault charge. Again, this is one of those frustrating situations where you're glad that the victim got some semblance of justice, but it was certainly not long enough. This next story is far more frustrating because it involves a story where justice will never be served. In a shocking development, Wayman Jordan Sr., a pastor from Waxhaw, North Carolina, was found dead on March 14, 2025. Jordan was the founder and senior pastor of Greater Blessed Hope Missionary Baptist Church, where he had been for over 30 years. The Union County Sheriff's Office had begun investigating him in late February after receiving a report of child sexual assault. On March 5th of 2025, he was arrested and charged with 4 counts of felony statutory sexual offense with a child under 15. The alleged crimes dated back to 2022. Jordan posted a $200,000 secured bond and was released from custody shortly after his arrest. However, just 1 week later, on the afternoon of March 14th, a death investigation began at his church. The sheriff's office stated that there was no evidence of foul play and no threat to the public. Details regarding the circumstances of Jordan's death have not been released. However, the investigation into the sexual assault allegations remain ongoing, and authorities are urging anyone with additional information to come forward. This next story in particular is one of the most disturbing, and honestly, it was one of those where you hesitate. How much do you want to share from the original report? How much do you include in the episode? But I want to share in detail because the way that this story makes me feel is the way I want this episode to make people who are listening to feel. And this story is incredibly disturbing. Now, again, I want to reiterate that this story does involve child sexual abuse and does involve the abuse of animals, so please listen with care. Christopher Hayes, a 46-year-old realtor, youth lacrosse coach, and church deacon from Spring Hill, Florida, was arrested on March 7th, 2025 on 90 charges related to bestiality and child pornography. I want to make very clear right now that I'm using the verbiage child pornography because that is the exact wording of the charge that he faces. I and many other journalists and advocates prefer to use the term child sexual abuse material, and I will use that throughout the rest of this clip, but I want to make clear that is the reason I am using that specific term at this specific time. As many others have said, there is no such thing as child pornography because children cannot consent to being featured in content like this. It is much better to say phrases like child sexual abuse material because that is a more accurate description of what it is. However, in some areas, the law still refers to these images or videos as child pornography, and so I'm going to address it as such to avoid confusion when it comes to the legal aspects of these cases. But when speaking purely from a perspective of advocacy and as a content creator who cares about these issues, I will again use the term child sexual abuse material, or CSAM. The investigation into Christopher Hayes began December 12, 2024, when the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received a tip about child sexual abuse material being uploaded to Kik Messenger. The Pasco County Sheriff's Office traced the activity to Hayes through his IP address and his email. A content warrant executed on February 24, 2025, revealed hundreds of explicit files linked to Hayes' Kik account. Investigators discovered at least 2 videos identified as child sexual abuse material, with one reportedly showing a child engaging in sexual acts with a dog. Additionally, authorities found 80 files depicting sexual acts between humans and animals, including 74 videos of sexual intercourse. 5 of these videos allegedly featured Hayes himself with his family's black Labrador retriever. Hayes, who worked as a realtor with Berkshire Hathaway and coached youth lacrosse teams, was also a deacon at his local church. He allegedly administered a Kik group called Not For Nothing and the username Foul, where he posted explicit content. When confronted by detectives on March 7th, Hayes initially denied all allegations and claimed unfamiliarity with Kik. However, when presented with evidence from his account, he admitted to being in the photos but denied posting them. Hayes was arrested and taken to the Land O'Lakes Detention Center, where he remains in custody on a $900,000 bond. He faces multiple charges, 90 as I mentioned earlier, including sexual contact with animals, possession of materials depicting the sexual performance of a child, and numerous counts of possession of images or videos depicting animal sexual activity. This is truly the most disturbing story that I'm going to cover on today's episode. And again, I hope this person spends the rest of their life in prison. Number 6, John Raymond. He was sentenced on March 13th, 2025, and I'll give you some context as to who he is. John Raymond, age 63, is probably best known for being a former contestant on Survivor Thailand.
John. Tribe has spoken.
He is also the founder of Lakeside Christian Academy in Slidell, Louisiana. He's also been involved in local Republican politics and owns a Christian radio station. However, in recent years, his name's been associated with serious allegations of child cruelty. In 2022, Raymond was arrested after the Department of Children and Family Services received a complaint about child abuse at the school that he founded. The allegations included accusations that Raymond taped students' mouths shut as punishment for talking in class. Witnesses reported that Raymond became angry and used packing tape to seal the mouths of several students, returning them to class with the tape still on until another administrator removed it. In a separate incident, Raymond was arrested for allegedly putting his hand over a 4-year-old boy's mouth and nose, causing him to struggle for breath. Raymond also faced claims of physically harming the child, including holding him upside down and whipping him. In September 2024, Raymond was found guilty of 3 felony counts. These included cruelty to juveniles related to the mouth taping incidents and second-degree cruelty charge for his actions with the preschooler. Despite his claims of innocence and accusations of quote-unquote cancel culture, witness testimony painted a different picture of abuse. On March 13, 2025, Judge John A. Keller sentenced Raymond to 5 years in prison, with 2 years to be served in prison and 3 years suspended with probation. Raymond is prohibited from working with children or being an administrator at any school during his probation. While the judge initially considered no jail time due to mitigating factors like Raymond being a first-time offender, the lack of remorse and his attack on the credibility of witnesses led to a prison sentence. Family members of the affected children testified about the emotional impact of Raymond's actions, with one parent expressing relief at the justice served. Raymond plans to appeal both his conviction and sentence, with some members of his family continuing to support him publicly. One of the names to make headlines this month was that of Robert Morris. He's the founder of Texas Gateway Church and a former Trump spiritual advisor. On March 12th, he was indicted on 5 counts of lewd acts with a child for abuses spanning from 1982 to 1986. The victim, Cindy Clemenshire, was 12 at the time. Morris surrendered on March 18th, posted a $50,000 bond, and was released within just 14 minutes. Gateway Church, now distancing itself, addressed the congregation on March 15th, urging prayers for victims. I began the show with some bad news for the Southern Baptist Convention. They are under extreme financial stress, but they did have some good news for them over the last couple of weeks. Some news that is great for them, but not so great for survivors who have been affected by the Southern Baptist Convention. On March 13, 2025, the SBC announced that the U.S. Department of Justice that was investigating its handling of sexual abuse cases has concluded without further charges. This investigation, which began in August 2022, was a significant development in the ongoing efforts to address abuse within the denomination. While I'm bothered that there were no charges as a result of this investigation, something tells me this will be far from the last time that the SBC is put under a microscope by the law. The ninth story I wanted to tell comes from the independent fundamental Baptist world. On March 18, 2025, attorney David Gibbs was given a platform by Pastor John Wilkerson and First Baptist Church to speak at the opening night of their annual Servants Conference. David Gibbs, of course, if you listen to the show, you probably already know, has been embroiled in numerous controversies that make his platforming deeply troubling. As the founder of the Christian Law Association, Gibbs has a history of defending abusive religious institutions and leaders. Here's just one example. A.V. Ballinger, a deacon at First Baptist Church of Hammond, was accused in June of 1991 of sexually abusing a 7-year-old girl. Despite 2 eyewitness accounts, Ballinger denied the charges and was released on bond. Shockingly, he returned to the church where the congregation, under the leadership of Jack Hiles, gave him a standing ovation. Ballinger's trial in March 1993 revealed further allegations, with 2 women testifying that he had also molested them during their childhood. He was ultimately sentenced to 5 years in prison. David Gibbs Jr., who just recently spoke at this conference, is the founder of the Christian Law Association, and he spoke in support of Ballinger even after his arrest and conviction.
You know what? Isn't it delightful to know that here's a church that openly identifies with those that are doing right. And here's a church that is going to be an encouragement to this good man. Can I ask you a question tonight? If Brother Ballinger were just taken out of that seat and you were brought up here to sit in that chair, how much encouragement would you like? Oh, you say, Brother Gibbs, if I had to sit there, oh, I'd want people to identify with me. Brother Gibbs, I'd want them to encourage me. I believe the Bible commands it. I'm excited here tonight because I believe you've encouraged this good man. I believe you've encouraged his wife and his family. Do you understand this is harder on her in many respects than it is on Brother Ballinger? Not only are we to stand with and be identified, not only are we to encourage and be supportive. Boy, there's not a person here tonight that hasn't done that royally in God's sight.
This incident really paints a clear picture that John Wilkerson and First Baptist Church of Hammond continually choose not to care about victims. Now, these stories are incredibly overwhelming, and they should be. Right now, I want you to sit with the fact that all of the stories you just heard have taken place in the last 3 weeks. That should make you feel a certain type of way. I think anybody hearing that could identify that there is a really big problem happening within one of the largest religious organizations in the United States with the Southern Baptist Convention. There's issues within independent Baptist churches, including flagship churches like the First Baptist Church of Hammond, and the people, the pastors who are being platformed. It should make you question the systems that put these people here. So thank you so much for listening to what is a very heavy episode of a very heavy podcast. And I really hope you'll continue listening in the coming weeks as I continue interviewing survivors and experts as we try to find solutions and ways to prevent and address these kinds of situations within churches all over America. Thank you so much for listening to the Preacher Boys podcast. I'll see you in the next episode.